This video is sponsored by World of Warships. Pearl Harbour in the middle of the Pacific has a maximum depth of only 10 to 20 metres, making it impossible for aircraft to drop torpedoes, which sink significantly deeper before stabilising and running to their targets. At least, that was the thinking prior to December 7th, 1941, when the Japanese caught the naval base by surprise with, among other things, torpedo bombers, skillfully dropping their ordnance into the impossibly shallow water. So how did they beat Pearl Harbour's natural advantage and overcome arguably its greatest defence? When a plane drops a torpedo, it inherits the trajectory and kinetic energy already provided by the plane. This is why torpedo bombers tend to swoop down low and reduce their speed before dropping, excellently demonstrated by these aircraft from this video's sponsor, World of Warships, a free-to-play game available for PC. I'm using these torpedo bombers from my aircraft carrier, and you can see a great illustration of the sort of flight path they take. You line up ahead of your target, then initiate the dive run to swoop down low over the water's surface and pick your moment to release your torpedoes. All being well, you score a direct hit and really contribute towards your team's objective. Of course, the aircraft carrier is only one of the ship classes that you can choose from. There are big-hitting battleships, quick and devastating destroyers, all-rounder cruisers, and even sneaky submarines. World of Warships has over 40 unique maps with dynamic weather, all of which have been updated with stunning new water effects and textures that make the game's seas virtually indistinguishable from the real deal. New content is released every month, whether it's new ships, in-game nations, cosmetics, or even ship classes, so you can always count on enjoying fresh gameplay experiences. Oh, and did I mention that it's also available on console? Jump aboard yourself and download World of Warships using the first link in the description, and during registration, use the code WARSHIPS to get exclusive rewards, including a bunch of doubloons, credits, premium account time, and a free ship after you complete 15 battles. Anyway, back to airdrop torpedoes, where we just mentioned how they inherit the trajectory and kinetic energy provided by the plane. Its forward speed will be the same as the plane's speed when it was dropped, creating an airflow over the torpedo, and it will also come under the effect of gravity. It's going to fall downwards inevitably, with the nose falling quicker than the tail, because the tail fins are going to create more resistance than the cylindrical shape at the forward end. Additionally, of course, the torpedo will start to roll, because anything other than absolutely perfectly upright is going to mean the airflow is different on both sides, causing a roll as it falls. When the torpedo enters the water, the additional pressure over the control fins gives the torpedo something to grip onto, allowing it to turn upright again, bringing the tail fins into play so that they can bring it back to its running depth near the surface. Of course, a higher aircraft speed or a higher drop altitude is going to mean that the torpedo is going faster, rolling more, and inevitably will sink deeper on impact. Most would go anywhere between 60 to 100 meters down, with anything deeper resulting in the torpedo being destroyed by the water pressure. Essentially, there was a hard limit on the speed and altitude of aircraft, meaning that only the most skilled pilots could drop torpedoes in only the best conditions. And the water had to be at least 60 meters deep, with a long runway towards the target for them to really stand a chance. Consequently, the US Navy believed that somewhere like Pearl Harbour, with its shallow water and nearby mountainous terrain, would make it impossible for planes to drop torpedoes in the harbour. The Japanese, however, had been working on their torpedo designs with the specific goal of being able to use them in shallow water and at higher speeds, so their aircraft could swoop down from hills surrounding a natural harbour, just like at Pearl. Their breakthrough came on two fronts. One was with breakaway wooden stabilizers mounted on the tail fins. They gave the tail a greater surface area, helping it to keep the torpedo running straight in the fast airflow and absorbing some of the kinetic energy when it would break away upon impact with the water, reducing the depth that the torpedo would sink to. The second was with modifications to the anti-roll system. Ordinarily, the anti-roll system would have just used a gyroscope, so when it detected the torpedo off-center, it would have adjusted some of the fins on the side to bring it back upright. At slow speed, that's okay, but when the speed increases, you get oversteer, increasing the time required to bring the torpedo under control. Essentially, you've accelerated the torpedo so it has rotational momentum, meaning that when it gets upright, it's going to overshoot unless you are already using countersteer. The problem is that a gyroscopic control will only apply countersteer once the torpedo moves beyond upright. So instead, they designed a system that would offset the center position so that when returning to upright, it would countersteer. When it's all centered, the fins stay level as no corrections are necessary. When the gyro senses a little bit of rotation, it moves the central control pin, opening up an air path to move the stabilizer fins. Simultaneously, however, an additional path opens up, shifting the centered position and shutting off the airflow. This returns the stabilizer fins to the neutral position, even though the torpedo is not yet upright. The idea is that the rotational momentum keeps the torpedo moving towards the upright, sensed by the gyroscopic control, which slides back towards the middle. As the central control pin is now off-centered, however, an air path now opens up to provide the necessary countersteer and return the central control pin to the middle. In theory, the countersteer will settle the torpedo upright and bring all the control pins and stabilizer fins back to the neutral position. Of course, if the torpedo is too far from upright, the central pin hits a stop and the stabilizer fins remain active. Typically, this is calibrated about 5 to 10 degrees of roll, beyond which no countersteer will ever be applied. All in all, this ingenious system returns a torpedo to within 5 to 10 degrees of upright much faster than a gyro-only system ever could. And by applying the same trick with breakaway wooden fins, the anti-roll stabilizers could even start working before the torpedo hits the water. What this means is that on impact, yet more energy is absorbed in breaking off wooden fins, and the torpedo is either upright or will be upright quickly, allowing the tail fin to start work to bring the torpedo to its correct running depth and trajectory. These modifications meant that Japanese torpedoes could be launched from aircraft going much quicker than before, and would only need between 10 to 20 meters of water, depending on the skill of the pilot. Suddenly, the mountainous terrain and shallow waters of Pearl Harbour didn't offer anything like the protection that the Americans believed. Battleship Row was suddenly exposed, with the roughly 15-meter depth of water in the southeast lock and turning basin providing ample space for the Japanese torpedoes to be launched. The bombers could swoop down from the hills at speed and line up on the fleet of battleships to deal their devastating blows. The Oklahoma and West Virginia took the brunt of the torpedoes, resulting in Oklahoma's capsized and West Virginia settling on the harbour floor. Of course, the most devastating impact wasn't due to the torpedoes at all. It was to the Arizona, as a result of an airdrop bomb that exploded within the ship's own magazine. But if it wasn't for the Japanese developments in torpedo technology, I'm not sure they would have attacked Pearl Harbour at all. Again, a massive thanks to this video sponsor, World of Warships. Download now using the link in the description, and remember to use the code WARSHIPS to get a bunch of exclusive rewards.